Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am creating a card project featuring some supplies from the March My Favorite Things release. Now, I created a sister card over on the My Favorite Things YouTube channel today where I used both that Friend Duo Die-namics die set as well as the Radiating raised stencil. On this project, I'm just going to be using the Anything But Basic Friendship stamp set and then another banner Die-namics that you'll see me bring in here in just a little bit. And when I was creating that card for the My Favorite Things YouTube channel, I was inspired to create a different card for my channel. I used the same technique to color the vellum, but I used it in a little bit different way. When I was going to apply the vellum, I was applying it directly from these mini ink cubes onto that vellum. And then on the project over on the My Favorite Things YouTube channel, I kind of blended it all together and created a solid effect. But when you apply this from those mini ink cubes onto this vellum, you kind of get this almost like drippy, dry brushed, watercolored effect. So I decided to recreate that effect and use it in its original state on this card. So I'm working my way through these My Favorite Things colors here in rainbow order, starting with Red Hot, Coral Crush, Lemon Drop, Sour Apple, Tropical Teal, and Pure Plum. And I am just using the mini ink pad to apply it directly to the surface of the vellum, and that's kind of giving me that dry brush effect. I'm being careful not to cross-contaminate the color, so I'm taking it right up to the edge of the previous color, but I'm not working it into the previous color because I don't really want them to blend together. I want them to be their own individual colors that are kind of stacked up next to each other. Do you remember that crayon art that was really like popular in the last couple of years where you take it and you melt them down the surface of a canvas? This is kind of what this reminds me of in a little bit different form. It's kind of got that drippy effect. I'm making sure that all of my colors are kind of at varying lengths down this strip of vellum. So you can see some are longer and some are shorter. And that gives me a really cool effect on the finished project. And I thought it would be cool to just overlay this on top of a stamped sentiment. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Now you can achieve a similar effect using some alcohol-based markers and you won't have any issues with dry time. Or you can leave this on its own to dry, or you can hit it with a heat tool. So all those are different options. I'm actually going to speed along the drying process per se by dabbing away the ink. Now this does take a little bit of the intensity of color away, but I think that's going to happen as it dries on the vellum anyway. So I am just taking a dry cloth and pressing straight down and lifting straight up because I don't want to blend those colors into each other. So I'm being sure that when I do blot the ink off, I'm just going straight down and straight up. And then I took it over to my trimmer and just trimmed it down to where I have that really colorful strip of vellum. So I'm going to apply this over a stamped sentiment, and I'm using this big friend word from that Anything But Basic Friendship stamp set, which is new from My Favorite Things in March. And I'm stamping it onto a piece of cardstock that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm just using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And you can see that stamped really beautifully on the first try. And just to add a little bit of sparkle and a place for me to hide some adhesive, I'm going to add a strip of gold glitter cardstock. This gold glitter cardstock is maybe 1/8 of an inch wide, and I'm just applying it over the top of that strip of vellum using a little bit of liquid adhesive. And I'm just using my tweezers to keep my fingers out of the way so I can see where I'm placing that on the vellum strip. Now, as I said, this little strip of gold cardstock allows me to hide some adhesive. So I am going to use some foam adhesive because I think when you lift up vellum off of the surface of the card, it gives it an even more ethereal look. So I wanted it to kind of be floating over that sentiment. Now for the rest of my sentiment, I'm actually going to cut apart one of these sentiments that's a part of that same stamp set. And it says, "You are seriously the best friend ever." And I just wanted to use "You are seriously the best." And so I cut that apart, and before I stamped that onto my card front, I decided that this card needed a little something. So I am using the stitched string portion of this banner die, and I am going to die cut it onto my card panel. Now, I already have that part attached at the bottom, so I didn't want to run that part through the die cut machine and risk kind of smashing it all down. So I'm only sandwiching the top portion of my card front between my cutting plates. And I'm going to reposition this and cut this into my card front 3 different times. And it's leaving me with like this stitched kind of swoopy shape that kind of crisscrosses across itself on the top of my card. And it just adds a little bit of interest to the top of the card. Now for the remainder of that sentiment, I'm going to stamp it onto the card front using some of that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted it. So I'm going to do a little bit of testing before I stamp it onto my card front permanently. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take a piece of acetate that's cut to the same size as my card front, and I'm going to position it over the top of my card front and hold it in place in my MISTI using my magnet. Then I'm going to align the parts of that sentiment that I want to use, and I just stacked them up here. And I'm stamping it onto that acetate surface using my VersaFine Nocturne ink. And you can see that I'm just kind of checking the placement and the alignment. And if I don't like it, I can just wipe it away and then readjust things and then stamp it again and kind of see how it's going to look on my card front before I commit. So once I decided I had it where I wanted it and it was all aligned straight, I removed the acetate, I inked up my stamp and stamped it onto my card front in some black ink. And you can see I have it perfectly aligned. It's exactly where I wanted it because I did a little bit of trial on that acetate ahead of time. So I decided I wanted to add a heart to this card front, and I just used that Coral Crush ink and just pressed it onto that vellum again and die cut a heart from that vellum as well as some white cardstock, and I layered them on top of each other. And then I'm adding a little bit of sparkle with some sparkling clear sequins, and I should have done the sequins last, but I didn't think ahead, so it is what it is. I'm going to attach this onto a card base using some foam adhesive, but I wanted to add a little bit of texture to that card base, so I am just inking up my bold diagonal stripes background stamp, and I'm stamping it in a coordinating color of ink onto that kind of pool colored cardstock, and then I'll attach my card front right onto that card base, and then I'll just add that little heart right on there with a little bit of foam adhesive, and that finishes off my card for today. So just a really fun and easy card that you can create to send to a friend for really any occasion. If you wanted to change up the sentiments a little bit, I think this would be perfect for a birthday card and so much fun to give for a baby shower as well. Now, as I mentioned before, this card was really inspired by the creation of another card, and I'll be sure to link that video tutorial in the description at YouTube as well as over at my blog. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies used in this project in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com because over there I'll have more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies for you. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my card making video tutorials. As always, thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Once again, thanks for spending time with me today. If you want to subscribe to my channel, just hit that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.